to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest Frank Pecora, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, currently retired former athletic director at, and I should have asked you before, where were you the AD at?
Northfield High School, Northfield, Vermont.
That's correct. Okay. Welcome to the podcast, Frank.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience here in the United States and internationally where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
Oh my goodness. You're asking to go way back. Let's see, I grew up in Baldwin, Long Island, graduated from Baldwin High School, went to Long Island University, got my bachelor's degree there in 1969. My first teaching job was in Copiague, Amityville for a year. Then I taught in Baldwin elementary school system. Coached JV football in Baldwin, then moved to Vermont for a year, moved back to Long Island. In the process, before I had moved to Vermont, I got my master's degree from Brooklyn College.
Okay.
And then I moved back to Vermont in 1974, and I've been here ever since.
Was your first job at Northfield or other schools?
First job at Northfield was I was a physical education teacher. You don't say gym teacher because you teach everybody.
Yeah.
But it was physical education. Then when I came back, I was the athletic director, JV soccer coach, varsity girls basketball coach, varsity baseball coach, and then they made me a science teacher too, because they thought I had some time on my hands. And then taught science for 20 plus years, became an assistant principal and athletic director my last 11 years at Northfield High School.
Okay, so let me ask you about science. Was it earth science or was it the other science? Because I'm not good at either.
Okay. It was earth science. It was biology. And then I also taught comparative anatomy. I introduced the first comparative anatomy class in Vermont, and it was a semester-long class that a lot of kids came out of there and became doctors, dentists, and athletic trainers. So it had its effect. So, matter of fact, my doctor is a former student of that class.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Let's have you talk for a minute, Frank, about any youth sports you played growing up on Long Island there.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of little league, a lot of baseball, or were you able to play some football, basketball too?
I did not play organized sports until, trying to think, I think I was 13 and I started playing summer baseball. I didn't play youth football. I played in high school. My freshman year, I played football. My sophomore year, I was gymnastics. Actually, I was wrestling in middle level. And then when I got to high school, I just played baseball.
So is that where the baseball bug bit you, since you've been coaching ever since?
Uh, Kinda. Actually, it was more the coaching bug that bit me. I think if I would have stayed on Long Island, I would have been a football coach or a wrestling coach. But when I moved up here to Vermont, I be I don't know, I just started coaching baseball. They didn't have football at the high school that I'm at or was at. Um, and it was just like being a baseball coach just seemed natural.
That's
And I
awesome. Let's
did.
have,
I'm
go ahead.
and I'm doing it. We're in the playoffs right now at Norwich, and um, when the playoffs are done, I'm done. So
Yes, but I've heard that before.
no, this is it. I've 50 years coaching a sport, and 55 years coaching is more than enough. And you know, I used to tell people I keep coaching because I can't sing or dance. Well, I can't sing or dance, but I've got to go. It's time to go.
Perfect. Let's have you talk for a minute to our audience about some of the mentors and role models you had in your life, both in the NIAAA, outside the NIAAA, growing up, etc.
Well, my first one was a JV baseball coach, and then he became my boss in Vermont, um, uh, Dan Delina, and we still communicate. We still see each other. He was my principal up here. Um, there was a gentleman, Bob Underhill, who was the assistant principal up here. He has since passed on, and he was a really important mentor to me. Um, um, Joe Delgase was the guy who gave me my first coaching job. I was his JV football coach, and he was the varsity football coach at Baldwin. And that's when I really started to think, I could really have some fun doing this with coaching. And Steve Shippos was another Long Island coach that I worked with. He got me involved with the wrestling, and then it was just like people that I've met throughout the years up here, and the NIAAA came along at the exact right time in my life. Um, it was I needed something more, something of a challenge, something to expand on, and being on that board for the 3 years was just an awesome experience. I will never ever forget it, and the people on it, including you, my friend, and the Valpo bus and
Well, yeah, we're gonna
96 years.
we'll get to that here in just a minute. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
I should have asked you a couple of questions ago. So you talked about Long Island up to Vermont, back to Long Island, back to up to Vermont again.
Yep.
So what makes a Long Island kid decide to go up to Vermont and stay then? What was the just a better job offer, or you wanted off the
No,
island,
it was
or what's the deal?
I wanted to leave Long Island. I wanted to go into the country. I wanted to live in the country. And um, when I moved up, um, I hate to say it, but my first wife didn't like it, so we moved back down, and then we ended up separating. And I decided I'm going to move to Vermont. And it was I had 2 kids. I was 26 years old, I think, and all the way back from, I had driven up to Vermont to kind of think what I wanted to do. Did I really want to move off of Long Island? And everybody up here kept saying, we'll give you a good teaching schedule that you can go back and visit your girls on weekends and stuff, and, have an early classes on Friday, late classes on Monday. And it was like, okay. And when all the way home, and the speed limit then was only 55, so it took a little bit longer than it does now. And I I walked into the house, the father of two, 26 years old, and I walked into my parents' house because that's where I was living at the time. And my father looks at me and says, "You need a haircut." And I go, "I'm moving to Vermont." And that's how I came up here. And then I met a lady up here, and been here ever since.
That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a little bit of a personal question here, Frank. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
Wow. 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 The biggest failure. I think one of the failures was as a high school student not continuing with playing the sports that I loved, dropping out of football, and it taught me like a persistence. And I've always told kids that somebody's going to come along and take your uniform. Don't take it from yourself if you can help it. If you can keep playing, keep playing. And I think that was one of them that I didn't try. And when I got to college, I didn't try to walk on as a baseball player at Long Island University. And I've told my youngest stepson when he went to school, I told him to walk on, try to walk on as a shortstop, and he was a really good baseball player, and he didn't, and he regretted it his senior year. He came home and said that he didn't regret it, or that he did regret it. And I guess other failures, I've been pretty lucky, I think. Besides the first marriage not succeeding, but it gave me two wonderful girls, and it gave me an extended family, or a blended family here that I cherish so much. My stepkids and their spouses and all my grandkids and stuff. So it's been good. I've had a pretty good go at it.
Excellent. Thank you for that insight, and thank you again for sharing. Let me talk about, and I know you and I've been retired from an AD for a while, but talk about the job of AD today as we know it, and how it's different from when we first got the job.
I think being an AD, and I've talked with ADs. I think being an AD now is tougher than it's ever been. I know when I was on the board, the NIAAA always talked about educationally based athletics. And it seems like kids are being pulled away from school athletics and going into travel teams and different, like AAU teams, and not focusing on what their high school has to offer. And then if they do go to the high school, I think ADs are challenged with not just working with the kids, but it seems like all of the paperwork and stuff that they've got to do. I just wonder if they have time to find time to have relationships with kids. Because I tell my players, the wins and losses are going to come and go. It's the relationships that you have with people. And that's what I think I value so very much with the NIAAA, was the relationships that I have with the people that I met there. I mean, I could, your relationship, you and I could call you up at any time, and it's like we just got off the phone with each other, and we haven't talked to each other for a year, and it's like the conversation picks right back up again, and everything is good, So
Absolutely, that is that is so true. While we're on that subject, so let's talk now about your journey with the Vermont Association, and then how you became involved with the NIAAA, and then of course, then we'll get to some stories there.
okay, let's see. When I came back to Vermont, we were just starting the Athletic Directors Association, and I know I was the first treasurer that the VSADA had. And then from the treasurer, I went to secretary, and then to vice president, then to president, then
Right.
past president, and all of that. And then there was a time when they said, well, we need representative. Vermont has been asked to have a member on the NIAAA board. And I thought, wow, I don't know what it is, but I really want to do it. And I volunteered. Another AD, Bob Hankston, he volunteered. And so we kind of flipped a coin, and he said, oh, you do it. He said, I've got enough to do, you do it. And that's how I became that member and Vermont's representative. And I think at that time, I think each position was a 2-year position. So it took 8 years to get to the past presidency.
Right.
So
that took a significant amount of time.
Took a while. Yeah. And it was fun being involved in it. I liked, I had, as an athletic director, you're in charge of the coaches. They're your team, and the coaches coach their team, and I'm coaching my team, which is the coaches. And then when I got involved with the VSADA, that became, I was being coached again by somebody else. And then when I became like the president, the vice president, I was coaching ADs, and it's like, this is pretty cool. And that's, and then going into the NIAAA, it's like, wow, you got the whole nation.
So now we have you on the board. I want to ask you a question that wasn't on the list that I sent you. So I want you to relay to our audience the feeling you had when you went to your first section meeting, and you were running the section meeting, and there was a multitude, a plethora, if you will, of blue coats in the room, if you remember that.
Yeah. I gave Mitchum deodorant a really test for its money, because I didn't do anything that day but sweat. And it was like every time, the only thing I kept looking for was one of the former presidents going like this, and there weren't very, very many of them shaking their head yes. And then finally they started shaking their head yes. I go, okay, I'm doing okay. I can handle it. And Bruce Whitehead, God love him, kept saying, relax, you're going to be fine. No, I don't know about it, but yeah, it was good. It was good.
I've got so many questions about the board to ask you, but before we get there, I want you to speak about your love of music. And of course, we share that common bond. but your love of popular music and how that's helped you with people during your life.
I can't sing a lick. Okay. I mean, and my wife has a lovely voice, and we'll be in the car and songs will come on and I'll start singing, and I can just see her just cringing at my voice. But it's just, it relaxes me. You know, I've always got earbuds in or headphones on, cutting the grass, working in the garden, and it just relaxes me. And sometimes it'll bring up uh, it'll recall a memory. You know, like people have a sense of smell that brings memory. A song will come on and I'll go, oh, when I first heard that, I was here, you know, and I really just like to listen to, you know, 60s, 70s, 80s, the
Yeah,
Beatles,
back when music was good, is what you're saying.
when you could understand language
Yeah,
and you didn't
there
have
you
to
go.
print, you know, your grandchildren could listen to language or listen to the lyrics. So, yeah.
All right, so let me segue from popular music, and I'll just say 96 Tears, and then that will take us then into some discussion about some board shenanigans that we may or may not have had.
Oh, the first time I was on the board, I was scared to death. The first meeting, it was like, oh my God, I am in over my head. And I was intimidated by all of the people that were there and how smart they were. And when we sat down at the board meeting, Larry Johnson was sitting at one end and he goes, "Rookie, you sit here." And I sat there and he goes, "I'll tell you what to vote or tell you how to vote." Larry was good. And then I don't know, we had to go somewhere. And I remember getting in a bus that oh my God. Now
Sam Rasmussen's bus.
Sam Rasmussen, the
Yeah,
Valpo bus.
the Valpo bus.
And you were playing songs on the radio, and you were going, "Who sings this? Who sings this?" And 96 Tears came on, and no one in the bus said a word. And I went, question mark, and the mysterious 96 Tears. And you go, "Who said that?" And I go, "Me." And that set it off. And then we were sitting at dinner, and if you remember, I took the napkin and I made it into a
Yes.
rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
And I had it on my lap, and as I came up, my hand came up with the rabbit ears, and I thought Joni Paps was gonna fall off her chair. She was laughing so hard, and she gave me the nickname Rabbit.
Yes,
So
I
yeah.
remember that well.
Oh God.
That's awesome. So share some other experiences you may remember. We took the Valpo bus out to Connor on the Prairie. And
Yeah.
I think that might have been the night where we heard the John Denver sound-alike guy. I think Jerry McGee was with us. I think that was that night.
Yeah, it might have been. No, you know what? I think the John Denver guy was a year or two later.
Could have
I
been.
think I think it was. And I can't remember what we did. Maybe it was the racetrack. We went to
I remember the racetrack, yeah.
yeah. But I remember
Because
I
Patty's
was
daughter
sitting,
was like 5 years old and was gambling and winning on the horses.
yeah, and Lawrence was.
Yeah.
Lawrence was winning. And I remember when we went to that John Denver concert, I was sitting next to Lawrence, and Lawrence goes, "Frank, you realize I may be the only African American person at this concert?" And I started to laugh. And he goes, well, take a look around. I don't know. And I go, no, Lawrence, we'll find some more. He go, God, I hope so. Oh, I love that man. He was
You speak about Lawrence. You can back me up on this. I remember sitting at the table, and you were down there on the corner, Lawrence, you and Tommy. Remember, Tommy was there.
Tommy
And
Marsh. Oh yeah.
But I remember everybody always had their 2 cents and said something here or there. Lawrence didn't speak a whole lot, but when he spoke, it was like the advertisement. When they say EFI, listen, when he spoke up, the room went quiet.
Yep. Yep. Oh God, yes. And we always sat there, and once he started to talk, everybody just, we're done. Whatever Lawrence wants to do, we're going to do. And I remember when he was going to retire, I sat in his chair and I said to him, well, I got to see if this is going to fit. And he looks at me and he goes, get out of that chair. I'm still here. It's like, it was, oh God, he was so much fun. It was so much fun.
For those who may not know, when we were on the board, for those that have been to the NIAAA office, we were in that small boardroom.
Oh yeah, we were jammed in.
That now became, well, I guess it's Phil's office now, but it became Mike Blackburn's office, and then a smaller conference room.
Yeah.
And of course, anybody that's been to the NIAAA office now, they've moved that boardroom down to the other end.
Oh wow. Okay.
So they had.
I haven't been there since I was on the board. I got to go back.
They've moved it out there. Talk for a minute, Frank, about when you were an active AD. What was the favorite part of your job?
Dealing with the everyday stuff of like going to games and watching the kids play, and the kids would come back into the office the next day and say, ask questions about how'd I do, what'd you think, and the interworking relationships with the kids and the coaches. The part that was really tough sometimes was trying to, I always, and I can't remember where I got it from. I think it was somebody on the AAA board who said, you can do one of four things when you go to a game. You can play, you can coach, you can officiate, and you can spectate. The minute you do two things, you're in over your head and you've crossed the line. And it was trying to educate the parents of, let the coaches coach and let the kids play. And I did a role playing one time at a joint meeting, and I said, I had, it wasn't an elaborate thing. I had 4 chairs alongside two together and then 2 behind them, like the seats of a car. And I put 1 kid in the driver's seat and a couple of kids in the passenger seat. And I said, this is a typical ride home. The person driving is the adult and the others are the students. And it was like, when parents would, oh, the coach doesn't know what he's talking about. Oh, why'd he call this play? Why'd he do this? Why'd he do that? I said, this is what the kids are like when they come home. This is what they get and how they feel when they come, when they get into the car. They don't want to get into the car and listen to that. If they lose, let them lose. If they win, let them enjoy it. And, if you've got a complaint, give it 24 hours and then talk to the coach. And that was the hardest part. It wasn't that I shied away from it. It just wasn't as enjoyable as the rest of it. but being with the kids, I mean, like I told somebody the other day that I've been in education for 55 years and I haven't worked a day in my life. You know, I always look forward to going to school. That's what I called it, school, because it wasn't a job. You know, I'm not going to work, I'm going to school.
Incredible words of wisdom. Let me have you share, after 50 years of coaching baseball, pick one or two of your best baseball memories. Because I know
Oh
there's probably hundreds, but pick
okay,
maybe one, maybe two that come to mind.
this is fresh in my mind because I just told this story on Sunday when a kid asked me if I ever was thrown out of a game arguing with an umpire. And I got to set the stage with it. When I coach, I'm coaching third base. I'm dressed in a uniform, just like all the other coaches. But in the summertime, I don't get, you know, it's summer league. It's low key. My rule when I was coaching at the high school level was we play the first 4 innings seriously. The last 3 innings, except for the pitcher and catcher, you can play any position you want. So, you know, it's like low key and let's just go have fun and learn the game. And I'm in jeans and a t-shirt and I'm in my dugout and this kid slides in and he doesn't, I'm not exaggerating. He is a foot away from home plate. There's a pile of dirt a foot away from home plate. And the umpire is about to call him out. Their dugout yells, he's in there. And he goes, safe. So I come out, and I looked at him and I said, Bob, you got to be kidding me. He still hasn't touched home plate. He goes, nope, he got there. He got there. I go, well, I said, I completely disagree, but okay. And maybe it was a little bit louder, but it wasn't yelling. It wasn't confrontational. So I walked back to my dugout, and as I'm walking back to the dugout, one of my assistant coach, who happens to be one of the players' parents, is standing there, and he's got this grin on his face. And I looked at him and I go, that was awful. All of a sudden I hear, you're out of here. He had followed me from home plate to the dugout. And he goes, I go, for what? What did I say? He goes, you called me awful. I said, no. I said, that was awful. But since you brought it up, now we're going to dance. And for about 5 minutes. And then, you know, I had to be quiet and I sat by the dugout and I, you know, didn't say anything. And all of the kids would walk by between innings and they'd go, we can't talk to you. You've been thrown out. You've crossed the line. And it was like, oh my God. So that was, I look back on it now, it was hysterical. It was really funny. So,
That's funny. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's finish up with a couple of questions, Frank.
okay.
The first one being, I need two suggestions. I need Frank's two suggestions for a brand new AD. In order for them to become a success, they will need to follow your two suggestions. What would those two suggestions be?
Number one, return phone calls or emails as soon as possible. Don't avoid a tough situation, and always do things for the benefit of the kids and the coaches. And it's kids first, coaches second. And you have to make tough decisions, but the kids have got to come first. And if the kids come first, the coaches are going to follow right along with it. And if your coaches need defending, step in and defend them, or you know, make sure you have all of the details. Make sure that you know the whole story, and then meet the situation head on. That might have been more than two.
No, that's fine. That's perfect. We'll finish with this, Frank. What question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
I don't know, because you covered it pretty well, especially with that. What was your biggest failure? That was like, ooh, I don't know what that one was. I don't know. It was really easy to talk with you. One, because you're a good friend, but two, because the questions were to the point, and I enjoyed it. I really did. It was fun.
That's excellent. On that, that'll wrap up this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our guest today, our special guest, has been Frank Pecora, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, currently retired, former board member of the NIAAA, and former athletic director at Northfield High School in Vermont. Frank, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.